Hello, everyone. I'm just going to wait just a few more seconds. I can see the attendance just creeping up there, so give it just a little bit longer. There we are now. Actually, we're just 1 minute past, so we'll get started. Hello, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today, Hack to the Future, Protecting Your Business from AI Cyber Threats. Great to have you all with us. So today's session, it's all about understanding how AI is changing the game in cybersecurity, both in terms of new threats and new ways to defend against them. Today, you're going to hear from our experts on real-world threats, what to watch out for, and most importantly, what you can do to protect your business. So my name's Emma Kevitt. I'm your host for today's webinar, and I'm joined by Brian Fitzpatrick, Sales Director at Echo MSP, Declan Timmins, Managing Director of Professional Services at Echo, and Paul Hogan, Director of Managed Detect and Respond at Echo. Thank you all for joining us. So today's webinar, what we're going to cover, we are starting with the AI journey, the business benefits, risks of AI, how AI is being weaponized in cyber attacks, how to defend against these AI threats, and also any key takeaways that we have from today's webinar. We are also hoping to have a Q&A at the end, so please feel free to submit any questions you have in the Q&A chat. We'll keep an eye on the time, so hopefully we can get to those questions. And as a CPD approved provider, you can also gain CPD points through our webinar. So at the end of today's session, you're going to receive a link and a QR code to redeem your CPD accreditation points. So just follow that link and download your certificate. Okay, so with that in mind, I think we'll get started. Brian, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Emma. Yeah, I think it's fair to say this has probably been one of our largest attendance of webinar. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So on the back of that, it's obvious it's quite a hot topic for everyone, and I know on a weekly basis I get asked from business owners everything about AI constantly. So ultimately, look, guys, welcome to webinar, and as we all know, artificial intelligence has been transforming the industry. It's been revolutionizing the way business operate, from automating mundane tasks to providing valuable insights. AI has become an essential tool for companies looking to stay ahead of the curve. So our aim today is to bring you through the AI journey and hopefully leave you with some key takeaways that can bring you back, that you can bring back to your business with. So we decided to do it by taking a look at a roadmap, and this is quite a colorful one, but you'll also see some cones there, and there's some potholes in that road as we go along the journey. Well, it starts there with point one, where there's been an AI explosion. I guess the thing that's in the forefront of most people's minds is the rise of tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, and that's transformed how we've worked. In particular, how we're thinking about how we're working. So we're starting to think to ourselves, how can we use those tools to make ourselves more productive? So we're asking ourselves, could we use ChatGPT or the likes of Copilot to ultimately give us back some time and to give us back some data in a better way? So point two looks at unleashing benefits. The benefits that AI is mostly unleashed is got to do with boosting productivity and automation and those innovation parts. But on the back of that, you're going to get some risks. And you look at point three, where you've got some compliance gaps and misinformation occurring, security threats, and the loss of control that comes with that. In particular, anyone who's on this, who's a business owner or who is a director of a company, you have a lot of responsibility now to ensure that the data that you have under your control is not going onto platforms of which you don't approve, and that your employees in particular are not sending that data onto platforms and sensitive data that those platforms could end up using in nefarious ways, or those platforms themselves could get breached. So you've got many compliance gaps that you've got to think about as you're going along the AI journey. Ultimately, what it's leading us to is a point where we're starting to defend and protect ourselves around AI. And that's what we're focused on here today in regards to the security side and the risks of using AI. So you need to adapt security strategies to safeguard against the AI-powered tasks, risks. So bad actors are out there, and they're always a step ahead, and they're always trying to use the latest and greatest technology, and they're using AI to attack your systems right now. So we need to protect ourselves against that. Ultimately, we want to lead ourselves into a strategy for AI where it's leveraging AI to outpace threats and gain that competitive advantage. So the journey is there. On one side, you've got productivity that we all want to gain. On the other side, we've got a lot of risks that comes with it that we've got to control and manage. And then we have the other side again, where we've got AI, we can use it to protect ourselves against those risks. So before we go ahead, a little bit of background, a little bit of homework here. Artificial intelligence and generative AI, we need to understand the difference between the two before we go ahead. Artificial intelligence, well, that refers to, it's a broad field of research and development. It's aimed at creating machines that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, I suppose, such as like problem solving and decision making. But generative artificial intelligence, on the other hand, it's like a subfield of AI. It's focused on developing machines that can generate new content, such as text, images, music, or videos, and they're based on patterns and structure learned from existing data. So in other words, while AI is about machine performing tasks, generative AI is about machines creating new content. So let's delve into the benefits of AI. And there's a lot of people obviously on the call today. We all want to use it to improve efficiency. So even before we started this task around creating this webinar today, we thought to ourselves, how could we use AI to get this job done quicker and done in a better way? So we could have asked Microsoft Copilot, for example, to create a PowerPoint presentation about the benefits of AI, and probably could have got you maybe 30-40% there and saved you some time. But ultimately, there's other parts around improvements in decision making. So say, for example, you were a retailer, you could predict the products that may sell next month, and you could adjust your inventory accordingly. There's serious power in that. Then the personalization comes back in the AI, where platforms start to learn what you like and you don't like, and you can use that information to best guide you based on your personal preferences. And then I suppose there's some predictive capabilities where, again, we're going back maybe into the financial side of things. E-commerce platforms could predict holiday shopping trends and months in advance, allow business owners to stock up on those items of what they want to sell. So moving more into the side of things that we want to talk about today is how AI can be used to spot threats. So say, for example, there was a data spike from an employee's count at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's very unusual, say, for a Saturday night at 3 o'clock, and hopefully we're all not in that situation. We're working at 3 o'clock in the morning, Saturday night. Suddenly a whole lot of data is being used by that one employee. So that could signify a potential breach, which allows for faster response time when you're using AI-based security platforms. And in Echo, that's what we do. We use those platforms to detect threats like that. And Declan and Paul are going to speak about that in the next few slides. So then on the back of that threat detection, you can automate instant response. And I suppose it's obvious around the security side, and Paul's going to talk to you about that. But I'm trying to relate things back to business owners. And if, say, for example, there was an incident, even with a customer making a complaint, you could use AI to trigger an action that says, here, alert management, there's been a complaint about a certain part of your business. So then, keeping around the security side, looking at the phishing detection. So majority of attacks that are happening now are all around email hacks. And AI can analyze thousands of emails and URLs and attachments to spot the subtle pattern changes that might indicate a fake phishing email. So that can be far beyond the traditional security that was in the past. It can detect very subtle changes in patterns of the emails, the way where they're coming from, what they look like, where the domains that they're registered from, what IP addresses they're coming from on the internet. Is that come from a bad actor that we know of that's part of our overall ecosystem of AI that has gathered that data from a whole pile of data points across all of the systems that we use to say, yes, that email could potentially be bad. So then eventually we're ended up with some predictive analysis, and in Echo, our systems use predictive analysis to prevent breaches based on AI analysis of data, protecting our customers from the latest with the latest technology. So predicting what can happen before it happens, and using a whole pile of data that we have from all the different systems that we use, and looking at a trend of data, and using AI to smartly analyze it and trigger an event. And then that's where the humans kick in and actually try and decide whether it's real, it's positive, or it's fake. And Paul's going to talk about that as we go on. So one of the key things we want to talk about, because before we start this webinar, we had a chat amongst ourselves and said, what are people mostly asking about? And business owners are coming to me on a weekly basis and saying, should I use Copilot or not? What are the risks? And then some of them aren't even asking about that. They just want it implemented and turned on. So let's have a look and see what people say the benefits are of using Microsoft Copilot in your Office 365 environment. 64% of people spend less time processing their email. They ask email in particular around questions like, can you summarize that mail for me? Can you take some action points on the back of it? 71% save time on those mundane tasks, and you can ask Copilot, for example, to go and, as I said, create a presentation for you based on some small amount of data, and it'll do that and get you probably 40-50% there. And then 75% of people save time on finding whatever they need in their files. And I want to come back to that point in a second, because that's the particular danger around implementing any tool like this into your systems. And so 85% get to good first draft faster. So going back to the email point, we've all in the past had to redraft emails 10, 20 times, God knows how many times. But if you use Copilot and ask it to go and summarize it for you, or write it better for you, write it with more humor, write it more succinctly, it will do that for you, and then you may only have to redraft it once after that. So coming back to that point around 75% use it to find data quicker, the biggest risk, we want to align the business owners and directors here today in particular, who have that owner's task of making sure that everything is in control and everything is secured. You need to understand that the power of the tool, in particular around how good it is at searching Office 365 environment. It can go everywhere across SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams. And if you put data in that environment in places which are not secured and locked down properly, then it may bring back sensitive data that people should never have access to. So before you implement a tool such as this, you need to make sure that your systems are locked down and secure properly. So again, it's a double-edged sword, and we advise people to plan the implementation of this tool before enabling it. And again, we're happy to help you with that. So,
I suppose, Brian, just on that last slide, it's interesting. Like, and I know people are skeptical of using AI. You know, I was the same myself. Like sometime last year, a lot of I heard of people within Echo starting to use Copilot. We're running out in pilots across the organization, and myself, I kind of didn't see the value of it, like, because I didn't really understand it. But you know, in speaking as things progressed, and I was talking to the project managers across Echo, they found it really, really useful. You know, because sitting in on a 1 hour meeting and transcribing that meeting, stuff like that, Copilot automatically summarizes it, and really well. Like, you know, I've seen the summaries, they're absolutely spot on, you know. So instead of sitting on that hour of meeting, you can take a quick summary and get the main points and actions from the meeting, which is really helpful. And then myself, you know, I started using myself. Absolutely, you need to understand that the output is valid, and you need to, you know, understand what you're looking from these tools. But the output gets you there, you know, gets you like 50-70% of the way along the path. And even I was sitting an exam there recently for an OT security certification, and I added in the notes from the course into Copilot and said, here, produce 100 test questions to test my understanding of the notes. And it popped up at 100 questions, and they were quite good, you know. So it's like there are real business benefits there, and we can be more and more creative in how we use it, but absolutely there are risks, you know.
Yeah, so then just speaking about then the controls that you can put in place in around the data that is there and has to be locked down. What's your experience of that, or what been people asking around the concerns they have around opening up a tool like this into general use?
Well, it's really around I suppose their data, you know, and where the data is stored, and you know, I suppose the access to that data. So are there right controls within that data sets? So you really have to understand where all your data is, how access is controlled within that data set. So you look at the data classification, handling rules across your organization, and putting some technology in place for that. Because, absolutely, Copilot can go across your organization and find any information that's there. If it has access to it, it's going to pop back up that information. So if you have an Excel with salary in it that hasn't got good access control on that document, Copilot can find it, so there are those risks there. So, you've got to be careful in the way you use it, and that takes the kind of strategic look at how you're going to use it, and how maybe there are ethics around how you're going to use it as well. You talked about kind of, I won't say manipulating clients, but seeing buying patterns. So if you place an ad at a certain time, person are more, willing to buy at that time at night. So, at 10 o'clock at night after 2 wines, X always buys something new, you can find those trends and then target those ads at the right time, but they're ethically, is that something that you want to do as an organization? So
spot on, Declan. Yeah, but suppose let's have a look at some of the business risks that can occur then on the back of use of tools such as Copilot, but God knows there's hundreds of them out there, and I guess that is the issue, that there is so many platforms out there which people have got to try and control, business owners and directors. So data breaches, they can occur in a few different ways. Employees can input company data out into platforms that the business owners have no idea about, that they're doing that. They're taking that data, they're asking questions in around it, and that data could go onto a platform, and ultimately that platform could get breached. And that's a responsibility in around, we're talking about GDPR, we're talking about NIST, we're talking about DORA. All those things are very much focused on making sure that you are controlling the platforms of which your business uses, and they are approved platforms, and you're taking all the necessary, whether it be policies, procedures, and technology you can use to lock down access into platforms that you shouldn't have access to. Again, I know I'm coming back to Microsoft, but they do, under their licensing model and purview, you can lock down what third-party platforms, AI platforms, your employees can use. So you need to be careful around that and understand your responsibilities. I suppose there's some security vulnerabilities that come in. AI can be used by hackers to attack weak security, and of course they're always using the latest and greatest tools to try and open up any vulnerabilities that you have, and they are using AI to its optimum to create a breach. And then I guess you got some misinformation, where if you're using the wrong platform, or a platform that perhaps is geared towards trying to sell you something and trying to push you in a certain direction, or try to make you think about things in a certain way, then an AI platform could just simply return data which may not be true. So as they say in the army, we need to trust, but verify it for sure. And then your intellectual property theft could occur in the back of a breach that may happen. So if you're in a company that has developed some amazing technology, those breaches could be used to get into your system and grab that intellectual property you have. So then ultimately we're going down the road of reputational damage, and that will most likely lead to some downtime, and then you have some data protection issues. And then you've got some compliance violations. And this is a nasty world to end up in, where, business owners and directors, you need to be fully aware that the double-edged sword that AI has become. We all want the productivity gains, but we don't want to end up in front of the Data Protection Commissioner explaining how you did not control the use of AI in your business. And that was the cause of the breach. And again, that responsibility is in your hands. So moving on from that, I think, Declan, you're going to have a look at some AI-powered cyber attacks and have a chat about how it's AI is being weaponized to do that.
Yeah. So I suppose it's not really that AI has generated new attack vectors. So, the standard attack vectors, generally speaking, are there. One exception to that are deepfake. So deepfake is an AI-generated audio or video which kind of purports to be you, and then try to exploit people, by manipulating the people that you're talking to or you're interacting with on the video. I suppose social engineering, again, always been there. There are new attack vectors, and that in Facebook chatbot was used to collect username and passwords. So there are chatbots out there that are not real chatbots, they're AI generated chatbots that might be collect some credentials. But again, should you be giving credentials to these things, you still really need to think about how you're interacting with different systems and stuff like that. And then phishing attacks, as we said, the hackers are really using AI. They're trying to, make sure that those mails look really good. They're improving all the time, and AI helps a lot with that to generate those mails and make them bespoke to different organizations, different types of people, and all kind of different stuff. So that makes it more compelling, and it makes it easier for you to click on that link where you shouldn't have in the past, or you would have kind of been a bit aware of that in the past.
Declan, maybe just on that phishing attack one, I just thought of one there in around. I know that we've a bit of competition in house with the guys who generate the stuff, the fake phishing campaigns coming from our platform, and they're trying everything they can to create new mails that go out that look even better and better. Whether it be a Netflix account or an Unpost or a DPD or Fastway or all these ones that we're all trying to, we're all waiting for a delivery to come in, or we're waiting for an account to acknowledgement or an account that needs to be renewed or something like that. The guys have a bit of a competition and to go and see who can create the best ones, and they're absolutely amazingly good and spot on. So training is so important in around that, and constant phishing attacks, fake phishing attacks coming from your IT provider is critical, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And like AI, as I say, it's gaining all the time, it's learning all the time. In actual fact, I come across initially kind of the test of AI was the Turing test, which was way back when, and all the AI current platforms can pass that test easily, and there were a number of tests in between. But the latest test that's generated for AI is Humanity's Last Exam, which initially they called Humanity's Last Stand, which was a bit ominous, but so they decided to change the wording of it. But 3,000 questions, a variety of questions. AI platforms now are scoring about 10% on that. And like I looked at some of the questions, I don't think I'd score 10% on it, to be honest with you. So maybe I could be AI generated as well. But it's trying to get there. We are improving. It's really, really it's powerful stuff. It's not going to go away. We need to embrace it. It's really good for business, but there are risks. Maybe on the risk there, maybe Paul, how are we doing on malware? What's the changes in AI and malware?
Yeah, well, I work generally in the security operations side of the house, and what we're seeing, I suppose, is, for want of a better term, it's like a cyber AI arms race is on, and similar to any other arms race you would have seen. But if you take it, I'll just touch on this now because I think we'll cover a little bit in more detail later on. But if you take it how AI is being weaponized and something like malware, so we're seeing AI-powered malware, and what does that mean? It means malware that's smarter, that's stealthier, that's more adaptive, and the adaptive thing is quite important. So we're seeing malware that's able to study a target network, understand what the defenses are, and adapt its strategy based on that. So if it sees, for example, there's a scanning engine scanning the machine right now, I'll see it and it'll go dormant, and I'll do nothing about it. One thing you talked about earlier, I think Brian mentioned, using something like Copilot to go and find documents throughout an organization. One thing we've seen, in particular with something like ransomware attacks, is one document that the threat actors look for is your cyber insurance policy. And we've seen a number of times where we've got the cyber insurance policy, they've seen you're insured for 10 million euro, and lo and behold, the ransomware demand happens to net out at 10 million euro, thereabouts. So, using AI and malware that as part of the attack path will go and look for those documents too is something that we're beginning to see. On the kind of concept of adversarial AI or ML, and this is that kind of arms race piece. This is actually using AI against itself, or machine learning against itself. So what you see in some of the defending products, whether on the endpoint or whether on the network, is they're starting to use machine learning and AI in built in those products. So traditionally we do something like machine learning to detect malware, see what it looks like. With adversarial AI, what we're doing is we're turning those defenses against themselves. The AI is beginning to understand what the defender is trying to do. Therefore, how can I fool it? And so it'll go and ignore me. There's one, actually, this is a number of years ago, even before Gen AI, there was a product that would study code without it executing and say, is this malware or not? And what they did, the malware developers, is they bloated the code with lots of gaming code and other code. So the majority of the code looked fine, but there's only some small elements of the code that look nefarious.
Yeah.
And the engines kind of skipped those and missed those. So that's a kind of brief intro. I think we're gonna touch on this a little bit later on. I think Declan, you've some more though on deepfakes and social engineering.
Yeah. So going back to deepfakes, how could we use it? So how would that attack? What would it look like? So if you look at this, like social media accounts, fake social media accounts are out there all the time. We've all been cloned. We've all been hacked at some stage on some of our accounts on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And the attacker's intention here is to connect to others in your network, pretending to be you, and with a goal of exploiting them, your friends and colleagues. So harnessing AI can make these accounts more believable in many cases, but it doesn't stop there. So how might that work? So this is Pat Larkin. So Pat's LinkedIn profile. Pat was the president of Echo Security and one of the founders of Ward Solutions, who were acquired in 2021. So if you imagine if I cloned Pat's LinkedIn profile, simply by adding an Echo banner to make the new fake profile, I'm basically copying across all the content. So here's Pat's new and improved Pat Larkin LinkedIn account. I now need to add some connections to Pat, so to make him look genuine. So I'll just go out into the market there, and lots of people want to connect to me. I'm a high-profile guy in Echo, so there'll be lots of people interested in connecting to me. So I'll get numerous connections there. But I also wanted to start connecting to the genuine people that are across Echo and other places. So I reach out to Fiona. So Fiona is one of our finance managers in Echo. It's simply message out to Fiona. I'm tidying up my account. I have some problem. I got locked out, and I have started this temporary one. Start continuing with kind of a general chat, and have some exchange of chat messages with Fiona to give her confidence that she's speaking to the real Pat. Again, AI can help with the tone and content of the message to fit what Pat would say, or in those messages. And in that interaction, so these are kind of LinkedIn messages I'm chatting to Fiona, and then I might throw in a WhatsApp message from a cloned or spoofed account owned by Pat. So that continues for a while. I leave Fiona alone, and she's kind of agreed that this number and this LinkedIn account is me, it's Pat. And maybe a few days later, I send Fiona this message on WhatsApp. Hi Fiona, I'm in a board meeting with Andrew. Indication the quarter looking really good, and I want you to transfer some funds. And that in itself is compelling enough, because she's agreed that this is the Pat Larkin, it is his WhatsApp account. But what if I sent you a voice message with Pat's voice?
Hi Fiona, I am in an executive board meeting with Andrew. Indications are that the current quarter is looking extremely good, and in fact, because of this, Andrew has asked me to transfer 30 million into our old Ward Solutions account as soon as possible. Can you arrange to make the transfer today if possible? Thanks.
So those that know Pat will agree that that's Pat's voice, and I think we'd be taking in, and the fact that Pat's transferring into his old Ward Solutions account. I think he's heading off to the Bahamas in a couple of weeks' time, to have his retirement fund. But it is compelling. Absolutely, voice is more compelling than that text message that you might get. And and there have been occasions where a woman had a text or a voice message from her daughter who said she'd been kidnapped and demanded $1 million ransom. So these things are happening. So it is out there. So then how can we avoid this? I suppose wanting to keep messages, you can't believe anything that you presented in electronic form. So you always have to verify and check it. As Brian said earlier, and validate those requests offline. But you should also consider the amount of information you share online. So Pat's a high profile guy. He's out there. He's talking to public accounts committees. Involved in Cyber Ireland. He's lots of bits and pieces online, and not massive either in comparison to others. But there is stuff out there. If we have that content there, if I have video footage, I can create a video of you. If I have voice snippets, I can create a voice message from you. So do consider that.
I think Declan, you've seen how they've become. Last year they were clunky enough, but I think in the last few months even they've become really slick. The things that are popping up on Instagram and other platforms, it's fake stuff like of Elon Musk speaking, and he sounds absolutely on the money of there's no jitter, there's no kind of hang up in the voices. It's very smooth, it's very clear. Do you see it getting better with that in particular?
Yeah, like it's improving all the time, you know, and in some cases it doesn't have to be that believable. You know, there was videos going around in from of Ukraine of Zelensky saying, you know, the soldiers should surrender and all kinds of stuff. You know, so all that kind of fake news is out there, and it only takes a certain subset of people to believe it, you know, to make it real.
So ultimately, we're coming back to, again, you can have all the controls in place, but you know, training your staff and having some prudent controls in place, and the social engineering that is really being hit hard at the moment. It's so important that your staff are on the money, isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it really needs good awareness of AI, good awareness of what's out there, good awareness of the news threats that are out there. And actually, maybe on the next slide, you'll see just an example of this going wrong, you know. So here we are up, you know, a pretty reputable organization, you know, they lost 20 million because a guy sat into a meeting and the only person that was real in that meeting was him. And the other AI generated hacker video asked him to transfer lots of funds all over the place, and he did. You know, so I mean, it is real. It has happened. You know, these deepfakes are really compelling. So you know, and you know, we've all been in Teams meetings. You know, people sometimes don't turn the camera on. So if you have a voice, you know, Pat Larkin tells me, you know, Deck, you know, I want you to transfer $1 million across somewhere. I'm in the meeting. You know, it seems genuine. I can't understand how somebody else could get into this meeting. You know, so I mean, I'd be compelled to do it.
I suppose then we step back from a very simple way. You know, everyone on this call knows that accounts get hacked and they get breached, and identities get hacked and get taken over. So if you don't have the right security controls in place, or alerting systems in, or predictive alerting systems in as well, that suddenly they've took control, they took that identity, they've logged into that account, they've opened up Microsoft Teams, they've joined a meeting that's popped up, turned off the camera, and are ready to play the audio that they need to make the instruction around. It sounds perhaps a little bit far-fetched in one way, but it's not. It's real. It's happened. That's the level we're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, like on the next slide, I think, you know, misinformation is huge. You know, it's a huge problem for businesses. So, you know, there's a huge risk of misinformation. And misinformation, you know, we've seen it in the political sense, and we've seen it in all the tariffs and stuff that are going on lately. You know, all the different conversations going on, and you know, false news has been bandied about all the time. But on this one, like I worked at a multi-million investment board, and you know they're really concerned about this because, you know, if I generated an AI deep fake of your CEO, like let's say Pat Larkin, and he went, you know, videos out there online, doesn't have to be that brilliant of a video. You know, the quality could be poor, but people will believe it. You know, see, he comes on and says, you know, we've been hacked, or you know, our product has failed, or there's some issues in the design of our product, or whatever, anything that will make the share value drop, you know. So even a small amount in share value drop, huge catastrophic effect on an organization.
Maybe like reputational damage as well, Declan. It mightn't even be necessarily what they're saying is, you know, in a business sense, overly wrong. It could be something personal. It could be anything that could just not look good to investors or the board or whoever it may be.
Absolutely, and there's no real way to plan for that. You know, you can't. How can you stop it? You know, you can't get rid of the video. They're all over the place. They go viral in no time at all, and you know, you can't really get it out there. So you need to kind of understand that this could happen, and you know, have some sort of plan and approach to do it if it does happen. I suppose on the political one, you know, you've seen this Cambridge Analytica blew up all over the news quite a while ago. You know, manipulating people, targeting people with ads, manipulate their political kind of views and make them vote in a certain way. You know, so again, you know, an example of how it can be used. And there are many other examples. You know, like there's lots of examples out there. You know, so. Maybe, Paul, how can we defend against this with all this AI risks and problems going on?
Yeah, sorry, sorry, just muted there for a second. Yeah, so even prior to AI and text, the threat landscape was something that was getting increasingly threat across multiple domains. From about 2019 today is somewhere attacks has dropped. Dwell time, that is the time that hackers spend in an organization, they get that like this to also drops. And we've also seen, and this is right back to what Declan said a second ago, we get the susceptibility of people to phishing attacks well formed and difficult to are not 94% year on year.
Paul, you're breaking up a little bit. You're just a bit crackly, just a little bit. You're coming in and out.
Is that any better?
Keep talking.
Yeah. Hopefully that's a bit better now. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Perhaps you're under attack there, Paul, from AI. The hacker trying to prevent you getting the news out there. We'll go again.
Yeah. Am I really here, or are you guys really here? Yeah. So I suppose just to summarize, the threat landscape has been a difficult place. It's got a little bit more difficult due to things like AI. It's made the time to attack decrease, and it's made the susceptibility for people to fall for things like phishing attacks to increase. If we have a look, I suppose now at some of the attacks that thing. We've touched on some of these already, so I won't labor all the points here, but one or two interesting ones. If you look at that automated vulnerability discovery, so one thing we do is, as part of security operations, we have the ability to predict who may attack you. We're using things like cyber threat intelligence and vulnerability assessments. We build up that view of what your organization looks from the outside, and we'll use tools such as one tool called Watchtower, for example, which uses AI underneath the hood to go and scan and discover vulnerabilities. If you turn that on the flip side, and I'm talking about our cyber AI arms race again, if you look on the flip side, we see the adversaries are using the same kind of tools to discover vulnerabilities so they can exploit them. One thing that's happened recently, and there's been a North Korean threat actor do this, is so if you look at the timeline, there is a vulnerability, there's a patch release, there's an exploit, and the vulnerability happens first, and whether you get the patch released or the exploit out, depends on I suppose speed and timing. But what we have seen those threat actors do is patches have been released. They've tried to reverse engineer the patch to see what the vulnerability is, so they can create an exploit around it. So really kind of clever way of using AI in that example. The other one I just mentioned for a second is the area of password cracking. You think back to your 1980s movies where the guy cracks the password. How did I crack it? Well, this is his date of birth, and his cat's name is Fluffy, and his daughter's name is Jane. So it's 1263 Fluffy Jane, and they've cracked in, and we've all laughed at that and thought that's a little bit silly. Some of the Gen AI tools used for password cracking do that. They look at things like social media, and they gather as much information from you, and they figure out, as humans, this is how we tend to generate passwords. We'll use something like that that makes it easier for us to understand. So an Iranian threat actor has done an awful lot of work in this, and has created a lot of AI-generated password lists, some generic and ones that are also very, very light. So I suppose the overall takeaway, and you can see some of the other, some of the other kind of techniques there. The overall takeaway, threat actors are not just experimenting with this now; they're operationalizing Gen AI to use in bad. So we thought that very, very AI can be, our AI can be, huge productivity boost for IT teams and for us as consumers in general. But also now we're looking at how it can be used for bad in the cyber arms race. But if we move on now and look at how can it be used for good, so within AI, so we said a second ago, if we want to keep separate what the threat actors are doing, we need to use the same kind of tools and techniques. There are a number of different areas that we use it. First is, if you look at some of the tools to protect against attack and detect and respond against attack, a lot of the vendors are beginning to enhance those with AI. So we use as one example as a security platform, a SIEM platform. Built in, we're able to leverage. What we've seen, and we've looked at this over the last number of months, the time it takes the events has reduced dramatically. Analysts having to laboriously go and try and investigate this, AI in the back often say, here so let's sorry, I see the audio sounds bad again. So here are the numbers you need to do, and I'll do those activities for you. Other areas, I think Brian might have mentioned this already, around anomaly detection. So with AI, it's looking for anomalies that we might see in terms of what a piece of code might be doing, a logon. So we see a successful logon. Traditionally, that's something that we wouldn't be worried about. So let me just change microphone for a second here.
Yeah, Paul. So I guess one of the key things around this is that within Echo, the everything that you're speaking about around the smart systems that we're using, in particular around the SOC that we have, the 24/7 SOC, is able to go and leverage all these different tools and techniques to understand an environment, to understand anomalies within that environment, to trigger an alert and get humans figuring out, well, again, whether they're false positives or whether actually real alerts, and then start to implement the recovery around it, blocking accounts out, investigating the situation, coming back in and actually trying to recover from it and make sure the systems stay online and maybe contain things as well. So all those elements that you're speaking about are all contained in which the systems in the SOC here. Do you want to try again there, Paul?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Brian. It's about at the various stages, so detecting what's happening, triaging what's happening, and then responding to it. So what we're saying, actually, the way the industry is going is we look at something like Gen AI, which is very much prompt based. So, for example, say in terms of threat hunting, find me all the machines that have this particular piece of code on it, or find me all the machines that this particular user logged into. So that's very much prompt based and is driven by an analyst. In SOCs now, we're beginning to look at agentic AI, so using AI in a goal-based or Gen AI in a goal-based way. So we'll say something like, if a ransomware happens, stop it. So that's a very broad ask, and what that would look like, for example, would be the AI needs to go out and say, well, if ransomware happens, what does if ransomware means? How do I detect ransomware? What does stop it mean? Does stop it mean I disable a user, I disable isolate a machine, I stop a process from running? And what we find with some of the SOAR platforms we have, and that's all about orchestration and response, they have AI built into them to enable us to do that and to generate some of these techniques on the fly. I suppose the net effect of it all, you can see it there. What we've seen in our SOC, the net effect is reducing, first of all, the amount of time it takes for analysts to identify an alert, an event, an incident, and to deal with it. That has an overall effect of reducing the overall number of incidents. So if the top level or if the initial access was an incident, but it didn't lead to much because sometimes the dwell time, the amount of time an attacker spends in the organization before they launch an attack is kind of key. If you stop it at a very early stage, what you're doing overall is you're reducing the risk, or you're reducing the risk of a material breach. So Gen AI for us in our Security Operations Center is really delivering real impact. It's delivering impact through tools which have Gen AI ingested into them, and delivering impact for tools or for processes that we use outside of those tools, which overall help orchestrate what our security analysts do.
But Paul, ultimately, like at the end of the day, having the mindset of that you are going to get breached. I mean, ultimately, no one ever wants that to happen. You put all the processes, policies, and technical measures in place, but gearing yourself up for the fact that even if you're partnered with the right people, in the event of a breach, they'll be able to react in the right way, limit it to the absolute smallest amount of exposure, and then should you end up going down the road of having to explain things to whatever level of compliance that you need to go back into, particularly data protection commissioner, you'll explain to them that this happened on the back of a vulnerability which was 0-day attack. Our systems kicked in, limited to this small footprint of an issue. All the rest of the systems were protected. Systems stayed online, and you were able to react in the appropriate way, as opposed to having systems that don't alert you and don't kick in, and you don't have also human beings the other end of events happening at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, where they're able to kick in and prevent a much wider event from happening, causing downtime for you and also causing you to go back in and have reputational and compliance issues. So that's the practical reality of the fact that mindsets have to be that we are going to get breached, and what would happen if we did, and how far could our systems protect us even in the event of a breach.
Yeah, that's key. It's key to reinforce that point, Brian, that you bring up there. We all think about how do we protect against threats, and that's everything from endpoint to cloud. What we have on our endpoints, endpoint protection, endpoint detect and respond. We have firewalls. We have cloud services. The way the industry is changing in a purely protecting way is talking about zero trust security, zero trust networking, and that has an assumed breach mentality. So, achieving 100% protection security is impossible to do. Or if it is possible to do, it's just financially prohibitive to be able to do that. So the key then is in the detection phase. So it's a little bit like, if you're beginning to have a cold, you start taking some cold remedies or something before it gets worse. So the whole key with AI in this area is, if a breach happens, an initial stage breach, before that turns into something more critical or damaging, that we're able to detect that as soon as possible, because the attackers are moving a whole lot quicker now using AI. So we need to use AI to respond a whole lot quicker as well, and stop something at the early stages before it becomes more catastrophic.
Sure, bang on money there, Paul. Go on there, Declan.
I suppose, it's not just us thinking that way as well, because all the teams coming across Europe for the new regulation, NIS2, DORA, one focus on that is that you will have a breach. You've accepted you can't protect against breaches. You will have a breach at some point in time, and that resilience is to bounce back from that breach as a business. The only way you can bounce back is to make sure you're using good AI tools like this to detect that breach quickly and understand it and respond pretty quickly.
Yeah. So looking at the practical ways to defend against the attacks, and we might try and keep this as brief as possible and really summarize it succinctly. So, I mean, obviously you have a security need that you need to assess things continually. You can't just be assessing them once every 3 or 4 years. It needs to be an ongoing one, and you understand the gap that you have in around it, and that gap should be filled with the latest and greatest things that are out there that could attack you, and AI is that. So looking at your plan when your IT partner is coming towards you and you're coming to you, hopefully on a quarterly basis or monthly basis, and you're looking at your roadmap and your strategy, which we do in Echo MSP, we then say to our clients, what are we doing around AI, and how are we protecting you against it from our side, the threats, and how are you using it in the business, and we start to create an AI strategy. So implementing the double-edged sword of AI into your security strategy going forward and carry of assessment is important. And then coming back to some instant response plans in the event that you did have attacks that you're ready to detect them and use AI to help you to protect yourself in that situation. How would you get back to people around the responses that you're going to go should you have an attack? So then the security solutions that are there, Paul, you might have a chat about that for a second.
Yeah, as you mentioned a second ago, it's if you take, let's just take an example of ransomware for a second. So where does ransomware sit? Ransomware typically sits on the endpoint. So protecting the endpoint at the very first place to start is kind of key. And if you look at the tools nowadays, there's two approaches. One is endpoint protection, where we try and protect something from happening. One point is, if we understand that we can stop something from happening, can we detect that something has happened in a behavioral way and then detect and respond to it? So what you'll find, and what we end up using is, anytime, and this is just narrowing in for a second, anytime we look at the endpoint, look at endpoint protection, endpoint detect and respond, we have to use tools that have machine learning built into them and use AI on top of them. So if you look at tools such as SentinelOne or CrowdStrike or Microsoft Defender, for example, Defender is a good example. It's built up of a number of different tools. There's 4 or 5 machine learning models on the endpoint protection side, and there's 4 or 5 machine learning models on the detection response side. And that's really key to delivering the security efficacy of that tool. If you take a level up and look at how our SOC operates, so let's use endpoint. If we want to look and say we need to take in signals not just from endpoint, but from cloud services, from network devices, from security devices. You need to have a security information and event management solution that allows us to take all those events in and then to detect what's happening as quickly as possible. And that's where AI can come in. Yeah, we can generate some analytical rules, but if we have AI-enabled analytical rules to help detect what's happening. And then the very last piece is using AI to orchestrate and automate a lot of what happens. Because if something like ransomware happens at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you want to be able to respond to that as quick as possible. Ideally, we have AI initially to go and respond to it and try and isolate the machine, disable the user, force a multi-factor authentication, reset, whatever it happens to be. Or if not, get AI to raise it up to the analyst to say, I've looked at this, I'm not quite sure what it is. I need a human set of hands and eyes to figure out what it is. Can you make a decision on it? So yeah, everything from protection initially, it's built into those technologies, detection technologies, more absolutely Gen I is built in, and all the products and tools that have it. Eventually to that responding piece, to action on events in relation, we see them using AI to orchestrate and automate how analysts work. It's kind of key.
Spot on, Paul. But look, I suppose the last couple of points in around staff training and expert support. And it's vital that business owners, directors, you're taking away from this that the onus is on you to ensure that your staff are being trained on the double-edged sword that is AI. And so making sure that's part of your policy processes and what you're rolling out to people to make sure they have that zero trust mindset, that they understand their what they've got to do around data protection and the privacy protection of the data that they have, company data, employee data, customer data, to make sure that they're not putting on platforms of which it's not controlled. And you have an onus on you to deploy AI security policies as well. So then moving into the expert support, ultimately you need to be partnered with someone who are security specialists in this field and are both using AI to protect you and are trying to hunt for those attacks that are coming from AI too. So make sure that your technology is aligned to that strategy, and implementing AI security into your strategy is vital moving forward. If you haven't got it there now, you should put it on that roadmap and strategy planner for the next years ahead. And then using that real-time threat intelligence is absolutely critical. And then ultimately this ensures us that we've got compliance with regulations. And I'm sure as time goes on, there'll be more and more regulatory requirements coming around the use of AI. Wouldn't you say so, Paul?
Absolutely, yeah. That's key. I mean, it's one area that's a little bit lax still at the moment is some of the legal frameworks around AI and where it's all going to fit in. But we can see that that's something that slowly but surely is beginning to settle down, and there's more activity happening in that area.
Okay, I suppose just wrapping things up here finally, just to take away some practical 3 points. You kind of heard me saying it the whole time throughout. It is that double-edged sword of productivity, and then it does open you up to attacks from AI, and there's opening up to the ability for AI to do some bad stuff in your environment. So it drives productivity, but increases that risk, and success lies in balancing both with the right systems and tools in place. And then ultimately you got to get yourself into that control mindset where you're going to manage it and you're going to harness it. So you may get the productivity from it, but you're going to have the responsibility of managing as well. So it's here to stay. It's you got to get yourself into that mindset shift of controlling it. And ultimately you need to have a proactive approach where it's that the protection starts with proactivity. Alignment of the IT systems and policies and technologies and processes of how businesses stay ahead of AI-driven threats. So ultimately, we're coming back in around to the fact of keeping you aligned to the policies, the proper procedures are in place, the proper securities in place, using the proper tools, the proper controls, and having a plan, having a strategy around it. So if you take away from the day and you don't have a plan or a strategy around AI, then hopefully you've took away some key points of understanding that you have responsibilities around controlling the use of AI in your environment, and then you should be taking full advantage of it to ensure productivity for your business. But then also you have to have a proactive approach around the control mindset as well. Declan or Paul, is there anything else you'd like to add just to wrap things up?
No, I think you've covered a lot of it. Like, I mean, it's just, you need to have a strategy, as you said. You need to we can help with consultancy around that to understand, there's an EU AI Act that's in force. You need to put your business requirements around that. Having a good AI policy, and you're talking about control and people use of AI. you've selected the platforms you're going to use, whether it's Copilot or one of these other platforms. You select a subset of all the AI tools that are out there and understand and do a risk assessment of how you're going to use that and what benefits and what risks are there. And then, if there are people in your organization using other tools outside of your environment, anything you share with a tool that's not a corporate tool should be just publicly available information that you'd publish anywhere on the internet, because that's going to learn from that information that you're passing to it. So if you've got some sensitive corporate information, you're going to pass it out to an unmanaged AI platform. Obviously, that's going to go into that chat profile.
Yeah. So ultimately, if coming away from it, anyone has any questions around it, not to know where to start with implementing policies or using the proper security controls around AI, get in contact with us. We're happy to help, and we can take you through that. I think it's over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say there. So we have had a question come through in the chat there from Mark. So can I ask you guys maybe to keep it to 1 minute or less, because I'm conscious I want to let everyone away on time, and I just want to get to the last slide just for the CPD. So Mark has asked, any tips on how to control staff using AI on their personal devices for work purposes? Brian, do you do that?
Yeah, so I think the whole personal devices is a thorny issue, and getting control of people's personal devices and that is always the thing that hackers really like, because it requires you to implement some controls around mobile devices in particular that are personal devices, and that can lead you into some dark areas with employees. But ultimately, if you have that control and you can lock it down that you actually only have a profile on the device that only allows people to access certain applications and websites. So you can actually put controls in place, particularly in the Microsoft platform, where they log into a certain profile and you only see a couple of apps on it, and they can't edit it, they can't change it. And they also put controls in around it that they can't access Outlook or Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive on that device unless they're fully compliant with the policies you have in place. But again, Microsoft does, again, it goes go back to Microsoft again. Most of us are on the Microsoft platform, that they do have those licensing there available under purview, where you can actually implement that you're not allowed to access any of those AI platforms, only ones that are pre-approved. So, Declan?
Yeah, I suppose it all starts as well with policy and awareness, So, your people are the biggest problem. So you need to educate those people and understand, what are the risks that I'm going to put this stuff onto an AI platform. Do I fully understand the risks and stuff like that? Because most people don't want to make mistakes, don't want to create issues, let's say. So, to have good awareness, and you've got a good slick policy that says, these are the rules within our organization of what you can share, whether that's publicly AI platforms or the corporate ones. And then, if you want to go to tie down or use certain technologies, absolutely put them in place to try to protect yourself if you can. But, humans will always let you down.
They will, and they'll always find ways around things. But without a doubt, you should have controls in place that employees cannot access company data on an uncontrolled device, whether it be their device or your business device. That device must be under control, and you must be able to demonstrate that control. In the event of a breach and you weren't able to demonstrate your control of where your data went and what they were using those devices to access on those devices, then you would have a problem with the data protection commissioner, that is for sure. And I've been down that road before, and it's a nasty road to go down. And back to the analogy at the start, the potholes on that road are pretty hard. They will take the shocks out of your car, and you'll be left as a business owner for a couple of weeks with in the legal world, and it will cost you a lot of downtime and a lot of reputation damage. So definitely control those mobile devices, educate your staff, make sure the policies are slick, as Declan said.
Okay,
that's a short one.
If we could just get to the CPD slide, just Brian, before we knock on to the 1 hour. Just conscious that people will want to just get so really I'm just highlighting this slide. You can follow the link. This will come out in the slide deck after the webinar. You'll follow that link or the QR code, the safe QR code, as we say, and follow the steps, and you can download your certificate for CPD training and accreditation. If there's anything else, I'm conscious now it's 12 o'clock. I really just wanted to thank everyone for attending. And also, if you have any further questions, you can contact Brian, Declan, or Paul directly using the contact details there, their email addresses. And just thank you very much for joining, everyone. And we hope you found the session beneficial. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.